This is an incredibly influential film.
Absolutely. Every little moment works perfectly. It only gets better each time you see it.
Hidey-ho!
It is the definition of filmmaking at its best.
And it just lights up the screen. It kind of blows all the competition away. It's essential.
What's your method, Professor?
Well, it's quite simple. If you'll be here tomorrow morning, not later than 9:30.
Tomorrow morning?
Well, yes. I've arranged a round-table discussion with a few people of various backgrounds.
Uh-huh. You don't think we could sort of begin right now?
Well, it's nearly 1 o'clock, Mrs.
Oh,
Shea.
fool, Professor. Let's get ourselves a couple of drinks, light the fire maybe, and you can start working on me right away.
Well, I wouldn't think of imposing upon you at this hour.
Listen, I figured I'm working all night.
So we've reached the screwball comedy portion
Of our program.
Of The Essentials. This is Ball of Fire from 1941, directed by Howard Hawks. Significantly, though, screenplay by Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett. This is the last movie that Wilder wrote without directing.
Right, and apparently he had already decided by this point, I'm going to direct my own screenplays. You know, that's the only way to not screw him up.
Right.
You know, this movie is an example of a movie that's very well directed, I think. But Wilder apparently asked Hawks if he could sit and watch him, knowing that he was going to direct soon.
It was part of his deal with the producer, Sam Goldwyn, who I think paid him a very peculiar number. He got paid something like $7,500 for the story and then $79,800 for the screenplay.
Why is that?
Very specific, but that's good money. And of course, I guess that's split with Charles Brackett, his co-writer for some time. Yeah, and then the other condition was I get to come every day and I get to watch Howard Hawks. But he then later said that the two things he learned from Howard Hawks were cut and action.
Really?
Yeah, he was not impressed with Howard Hawks, which is a little crazy.
That's weird, though, because Howard Hawks has made a ton of great movies. But anyway, I kind of stumbled across this again and was just, I thought it was hilarious and really smart and unexpected. And it's kind of loosely based on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is really funny. And it's sort of the urban version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
And I want you to look at me as another apple, Professor Potts. Just another apple.
This is Gary Cooper and a number of other linguists, professors.
Richard Hayden, a whole bunch of them, and they're all great character actors.
S.Z. Sakal, Henry Travers, really good. They're really good. And they're writing a dictionary on slang.
Right.
So they seek out people who know slang, most significantly being a character named Sugarpuss O'Shea.
Come on.
The best, and that's Barbara Stanwyck. And that's why this is such a great choice, because it's Cooper, who you don't associate in any way with slapstick comedies.
No.
And Stanwyck, who could play comedy, but that is not where she left her most pronounced mark.
No, but she could have. And Barbara Stanwyck was just spicy in all the best ways. And having her up against Gary Cooper, who is very kind of rigid guy that kind of talks like this. I mean, it's
pretty good, Gary Cooper. I said that was nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's such a sharp juxtaposition.
Yeah.
And it just lights up the screen. And there's also there's a really cool scene where Gene Krupa is in there with a matchstick doing drum boogie, and the film is just loaded with entertainment.
Yeah. All right, here it is. Let's take a look at it. From 1941, directed by Howard Hawks with a screenplay by Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett, Gary Cooper, Barbara Stanwyck, Ball of Fire. This is filmmaking at its best.
It's essential.
Great to see Gary Cooper sort of pretend he's not a tough guy in the fight at the end with Dana Andrus.
Right.
Like, we know, you're tough.
Yeah.
You're Will Kane. You're very tough.
Yeah, but he, I think, enjoyed this in a way that Cary Grant enjoyed goofing on himself. Cary Grant had much more of that in his career. I think he had success with that early and got a lot more opportunities and gravitated toward them to be comic. But Gary Cooper didn't get it as much, but if it were the right role, he knocked it out of the park.
There's that scene toward the end when the linguists are in the room and Dan Duryea is shooting, right? And he licks his thumb and puts it on the sight and says very quickly,
I saw me a picture last week.
and that's what
Sergeant
Gary
York?
Cooper did in Sergeant York. So
Right.
it was a little fun inside baseball moment for
Right.
for those guys. I love finding out what people got paid. Cooper got $150,000 and Stanwyck got $68,133.
Really had to go hard for that last 133.
Yeah, and then there's and then as I mentioned before, then there's the amount that Wilder got paid and Brackett for the screenplay, $79,800.
Right.
Like apparently Goldwyn, you negotiated with Goldwyn
Down to the penny.
down to the very last dollar. But you see the disparity between male and female stars there, with Cooper getting $150,000 and Stanwyck, who eventually became the highest paid woman in America during the height of her career, like, you know, when she's doing Double Indemnity, 1944. But here she's getting less than half of what Cooper made.
You're right. All the people that ran the studios were tough businessmen, but they as thuggish as they could sometimes be, and uncultured or whatever you want to call them, they genuinely loved movies, and that's something that you wish were a little more present nowadays. People come out of business school and they don't have the love for the Nickelodeon aspect of it. You know, let's do a wrestling picture. You know, you kind of want a little bit of that. And when I encounter people nowadays who are in the executive offices and they really love film and they mention things that go back earlier in film, I feel a kindred spirit, and I go, oh, okay, good. I don't have to sell them on the magic of film. They already know it.
Interesting. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you.
Here's a look at what's coming up next week with me and Brad Bird on The Essentials. From 1968, 2001, A Space Odyssey. This has been an incredibly influential film to so many great modern directors.
Various aspects of this movie have become part of the public consciousness.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
It takes jumps that are kind of breathtaking. It demands that you pay attention to it and watch it in a way that's unique to it.
That's next Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Continue the conversation on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag TCM Essentials. Thanks for joining us for The Essentials.